The second game of the day in the Premier League on Sunday finishes Everton 0, Manchester United 3. Mark Donaldson alongside Shaka, Hislop and Rob Dawson. Let's get straight to Goodison. And Rob, that, given everything we've said and given the circumstances that Manchester United faced, going to Goodison with a team that had just been deducted 10 points, that might be one of Manchester United's best wins of the season, yes?
I'd say probably the best, given those circumstances that you just mentioned. Goodison Park is a tough place to come anyway. Everton are in form. United have got injuries that they're having to deal with. You've got the anger that Everton fans feel about that 10-point deduction. There were protests outside the stadium before the game. It kind of reached fever pitch around kickoff. You did really worry ahead of the game for United, given that sometimes this season that they seem to have lacked that little bit of mental strength. But somehow they've come through all of that. It's their biggest Premier League win of the season. Obviously some shaky moments, but have come through it. And I think you're right. The most impressive performance that United have put in the season and their biggest win.
Football, Shaka, it's a stupid game because Manchester United are only 6 points off the top of the table now.
Yeah, Manchester United are ahead of Brighton, ahead of Newcastle, 2 points behind Spurs. Spurs who are in a bad patch themselves, but we've heaped all kinds of praise on them all season long, and we've been very critical of Manchester United. Yet here we are, 13 games in, they're 2 points. They're 2 points adrift of Tottenham Hotspurs, and I have to admit I didn't see this coming. That being said, some of their football this season has not been great, and I'll double down on what Rob said. I thought this was easily their best performance. Their football was as good as you've seen it. Players, the centre-back pairing of Lindelof and Maguire coped with everything from Everton and Calvert-Lewin as comfortably as you could expect. Onana is starting to look like the goalkeeper we saw at Inter Milan and Ajax. In Manu, they've got a teenager coming through who, all right, it is his first full start, but what a performance. And we simply cannot talk about this game, this performance, this result without talking about the opening goal. What a strike from Garnacho, and for all the anger of Everton fans, for all the expected emotion that surrounded this game, that just put an absolute pin to that balloon. What a way just to take everything out and change the narrative of the 90 minutes to come, or 80 or whatever it was to go still.
I have to say, Shaq, that was poor goalkeeping from Pickford. He should have caught that.
Let me tell you something. Unless Pickford was standing on that post, hanging from the crossbar, he was not saving that. I mean, goodness me. But seriously, how do you stop that?
You don't.
Unless everybody is out. I mean, not just Pickford, but Everton defenders are just out of position. You do everything right. And Garnacho produces that. I mean, it really was, as I say, it really was a way just to take all the air out of the room, given everything that we kind of expected coming into this one.
My name's not Dan Thomas. I'm not going to say what was better, Rooney's overhead acrobatic kick or that one from Garnacho, Rob. Let's just appreciate them both. That's the thing that most Man United fans thought of immediately, I imagine, when he did that. It was pretty much the same as Wayne Rooney's.
I don't even know how you can talk about the goal and do it justice. It's that good. I mean, you just have to see it. In the stadium, it looked a little bit like Dalot had overhit his cross a little bit, and it's hard. It's a hard enough goal to score anyway when the cross is perfect. But he's had to backpedal at least a couple of steps. So he's actually going the wrong way before his bicycle kick into the top corner. And I was lucky enough to be right behind it, and it absolutely just arrowed into the top corner. There's absolutely no stopping it. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in the stadium for Rooney's. I would hate to have to decide which one was better. For a 19-year-old boy to do that in the first 5 minutes of a game of such importance, we talked about the atmosphere, what was happening inside the stadium is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's a goal so good that we'll be seeing replays of that forever.
Oh, and deservedly so. When Shaka was going through the individual players, one he didn't mention, and I want to mention to you, Rob, is someone whose return's been so eagerly awaited by Man United. The experience, the calm head, Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I think, when you talk about this game, you're obviously going to talk about Garnacho and the goal. You're obviously going to talk about Kobe Mainoo, a teenager making his first Premier League start. But you do have to give an awful lot of credit to Luke Shaw. I mean, I actually didn't think he was going to start today. He's been out for 3 months. Again, ahead of this game, is it the type of game where you really want to chuck a guy in who's been out for 3 months? Well, obviously Ten Hag had no problems doing that, and Luke was absolutely fantastic. And in that kind of quiet, assured way that maybe Man United have missed. Left back has been a problem position for them this season because of an injury to Malacia as well. So they've had to use Lindelof there. They've had to use Dalot there. Amrabat's played there at different occasions, but they look such a better team with Luke Shaw there. They're far more balanced. He offers something going forward. He can defend. They're just a far better team with Luke Shaw in it. And again, very, very quietly, was very, very assured. I think he deserves an awful lot of credit for being thrown back into a game like this when probably he wasn't ready. I mean, I'm sure that he'll say after the game that he was ready. I can't imagine that he was ready. But to put a performance like that in a game like this, he deserves an awful lot of credit.
Shaq, 10 minutes into the second half, Martial goes down. Referee says yellow card. Another look, and it's like, hold on a minute, there's contact here. And you could sense the Everton fans' anger before it's even overturned. The anger was at Martial because he was booked and they thought he was trying to cheat, but then VAR intervenes. This is what VAR is for. Penalty for you?
Yeah, it was. It was the right decision. And now, I guess the argument, which in all honesty is one without much merit, is that he was looking for it. Well, I'm totally fine with that. You leave Youngly leaves a lazy leg hanging. You're asking for trouble, and as a result, the referee, for me, eventually got to the right decision. I have to admit, in real time, I didn't think it was a dive. It didn't look like a dive to me. Of course, the referee was perfectly well positioned, and he saw it differently, but it didn't look like a dive. And then once you saw the replay, you knew what was. You knew the referee would overturn his decision. So eventually got it right, thanks to VAR. And to your point, Mark, that's exactly why we wanted this video technology to address human error, innocent human error such as this one.
We've spoken about this being a powder keg in the circumstances, Rob, and after Martial was booked, it was then taken away from him. I think the place would have erupted had the second yellow been given to Ashley Young, as well as a penalty for Manchester United.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because I was sat next to a guy in the press box who said, if this penalty gets given, the place is going to erupt. Given the anger towards the Premier League, and it did. And if you're right, if Ashley Young had been given a second yellow card, it would have got even worse. I'm actually surprised that he didn't get a second yellow card. I did wonder at the time whether the referee was dealing with so much that he'd almost kind of forgot to deal with Ashley Young, because it's a bookable offence. Anthony Martial, if he doesn't go down, he's clean through on goal and has a very, very easy chance to score. So I'm not quite sure how Ashley Young has escaped that. Obviously, it's good news for Everton, and I think it was quite telling that he was whisked off by Sean Dyche quite quickly after that. I think he was probably on his very, very last warning. I thought it was interesting that United, towards the end of the first half, looked very, very shaky. Everton had about 5 chances in 5 minutes, and then the second half, for some reason, that energy had kind of disappeared from Everton a little bit, and United were in relative control in the second half. And that second goal again, Garnacho the goal kills Everton right at the start of the first half. That penalty kills Everton again right at the start of the second, and after that, United are somewhat comfortable, a position where they haven't really been used to this season.
As a fan and as a journalist,
can I just hear Mark?
Sorry. Yes, sure.
Just to interject. I have absolutely no problem with Ashley Young not seeing a second yellow there, just from a footballing perspective. And listen, I get it. 9 times out of 10, a foul is committed in the boxing in those circumstances. Referees are instructed to give a yellow. If it's a second yellow, then so be it. But I think Ashley Young, he comes across. He's a little bit slow in getting across, and then tries to pull out of the challenge. So just from a footballing perspective, I don't see that as a second yellow. And again, I know that the laws may dictate differently, but I was totally fine with no second yellow. Absolutely, yes, a penalty, but I don't think it warranted anymore.
Look at you bringing sense to the conversation. It's
I'm-
just
I'm-
enough.
That's not what we're here for, Shaka. Come on.
No, it's not what we're here for. I want to talk about. I want to talk about emotion. I want to talk about the atmosphere. And as a fan and as a journalist, you've been to hundreds of games over the years. What did that feel like being a part of it before kickoff in the 10th minute with the Everton fans? And how close was that to boiling over, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in stadiums before where it felt like there was a bit of an edge around the game for whatever reason, and it certainly felt, from the minute that you pull up and park your car, it felt like there was a bit of an edge. Usually we get here about 3 hours before. There's not many people around. We get ourselves sorted, away from the kind of the chaos outside the stadium. But already there was, thousands of Everton fans around outside of the stadium passing out those pink placards with their message to the Premier League written all over them. Then straight after kickoff, all the placards go up. There was an awful lot of anger in the stadium. Even outside, there were fireworks going off around sort of the 5th minute. At half time, the press box here at Everton is right in the middle of the main stand. There was Everton fans, coming up to the press box and shouting and screaming at the journalists to make sure that the protests were reported and that their anger towards the Premier League were reported, even at the final whistle, given how comfortable it had been at the end for Man United. The stewards were immediately right up around the ground. There was a couple that walked straight onto the pitch to get around the referee. They were obviously worried about fans sort of infiltrating the pitch and getting on the pitch and causing a problem. It did feel like one of those games where there was that edge all the way through it. I mean, I actually think, when the authorities look back at this game, they'll probably be quite thankful that it was a relatively comfortable game, because if it had gone right the way and that edge had kind of been allowed to build and build, it did feel like it was one of those kind of powder keg moments. Fortunately, sitting here now, I think it's gone off without much incident. But again, Everton fans are more than well within their rights to voice their anger at the deduction, because that could have a massive telling on their season and where they play, what division they're playing in next season.
Final question to you, Shaka. Rob said that's United's biggest win this season. Yes, perhaps. Now they've got to go to Turkey and potentially beat Galatasaray, certainly not lose to Galatasaray in midweek. They've never won against Galatasaray in Turkey. How big a fixture is that?
I think it's huge, and it was certainly in terms of their own prospects, not just in the Champions League. I think the performance and result today kind of lift some of the immediate pressure off of Erik ten Hag. But we know how fragile that can be. 2 or 3 bad results, and we're right back to where we were a couple of weeks ago. But certainly, I think in an effort to keep this trend going, a trend in terms of building on a performance and a result, again, arguably the biggest performance and result of this season, they need to have another good performance. Otherwise, it's just a one-off against a team in the bottom 3, and Everton fans, of course, won't thank me for describing them as such, given everything that we've spoken about. But ultimately, that Manchester United will be judged on some of the bigger games to come. This was a big step in the right direction, but ultimately not where they'll be judged.
My thanks to Rob at Goodison and to Shaka at his space hub somewhere in Massachusetts. Just 6 points off the top of the table, Man United, with an absolute rocket of a goal from Garnacho. Bye for now.